Hi everyone, it's Lisa Mears. Thank you for joining me. In today's video, I'm going to be making 2 cards using some fun brand new Halloween products from the Pretty Pink Posh August 2022 release. So let's take a look at some of the stamp sets I'll be using. This first one is the Halloween Critters. There are 4 critters, but I'm only going to be using 2 of them. And there is a sentiment that says boo and you are spectacular. I'm also going to be bringing in a few of the candy stamps, which are the individual stamps that are shown on the Halloween envelopes stamp set. I'm also going to be bringing in the little spider stamp. I'm also going to be using the Halloween Borders stamp set. I'm going to be using the solid border of the fence. That is the second border stamp that you see there. And I'm also going to be bringing in some layered stencils. So this is the layered ghost stencil, which is a 3-layer stencil. You can do a really fun ghost background on your cards. And I'll also be bringing in the layered pumpkins 3-layer stencil where you can make a fun pumpkin background for your cards. And finally, I'll be using the Boo Script word die. And I will have a list of all of these products down in the description box below. So if you're interested in any of these products, take a look down there and there will be links for you. And there are so many other fun products that are part of this Halloween release, and I will put a link to the video where I showed all of these products up here in the top right hand corner, so be sure to check all of them out. So I went ahead and stamped out a stamp from the Halloween Critters stamp set, just coloring it up here with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and basically doing just some watercoloring with the real brush markers as well as the blender marker that I have that's included in that set. I will put a link to all of these colors down in the description box below, so if you're interested in duplicating any of these colors, you can take a look down there and see what colors I've used. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and set this to music, and if you want to watch the coloring, please do so. If you don't want to watch the coloring and you want to skip all the way to the card making, you can advance to timestamp 6 minutes and 42 seconds. piece of Bristol smooth cardstock down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I'm going to do some ink blending on here as well as add a stencil. So I'm starting out with the Twisted Citron Distress Oxide ink and adding a little bit to the bottom of this cardstock. This is going to be the grass on my scene. Now I'm adding some of the shaded Lilac Distress Oxide ink all over that card background. So everywhere above the green is going to have this light purple ink. Next, I'm going to come in with a darker shade of purple, and this one is called Wilted Violet. And I'm going to add the Wilted Violet all along the edges of the card front, only where the purple is. So I'm not coming down into the green at all, only the edges on the top, left, right side of the card where the purple is already shown. And then I'm going to come back in with the shaded lilac, the lighter purple, and just blend the darker purple in with the lighter purple just to get a better blend. Next, I'm going to use the layered ghost stencil, and I'm going to put down my first layer right over my cardstock. I'm just going to line it up and hold it down with some magnets, and I'm going to use a white pigment ink to add ink to these ghosts. I wanted the ghost to be very subtle looking in the background of this card. That's why I'm going with a white ink. And yes, I'm getting some of that purple ink on my ink pad, but it's really no big deal. I can clean that off later. Next, I'm going to remove that layer and I'm going to add my second layer for this stencil. This is the face of the ghosts. Now keep in mind, because this is a 3-layer stencil, you can omit this layer if you wanted to. You don't have to add the faces for your ghosts if you do not want to. But I decided it would be super cute by adding them, so I'm going to go ahead and use a black ink to add the eyes and the mouth to all of these ghosts. So I go ahead and add my third layer, and the third layer is a layer of stars. And I'm using some paper glaze. This is paper glaze in the daffodil yellow color, and I'm just using a spatula and I'm adding it in all of the star spaces on that stencil. What's nice about this layer of the stencil is that this layer just contains the stars. So if you wanted to use this layer by itself just to give a nice starry background, you could totally do that. So this stencil actually provides multi-uses. You can use it as just with the ghosts with the stars, or you can use the stars by itself. So after I apply all that paper glaze, I go ahead and remove the stencil, and I love how bright yellow those stars look by adding that paper glaze. I will have to set this aside to dry, but it dries pretty quick. And once it's dry, I'll add that panel to my Misti, and I'm going to stamp out the fence border. And again, I'm using the solid fence, so I'm going to apply some black ink to it and stamp this down into the green grassy area of my card front. There is a fence that is open, so if you wanted to color it, you could, but I chose to use the solid stamp so that I didn't have to color it. So each one of the Halloween critters is carrying a pumpkin, and I'm going to go ahead and add a pumpkin face. There are 3 different face options for the pumpkins on that stamp set, so I went ahead and just stamped down a face for that pumpkin because I forgot to do that earlier. So now I'm going to go ahead and add this critter to my scene, and I'm going to add all the little candy pieces from the Halloween envelopes stamp set just around him at the bottom of the card layer. So I have a little piece of candy corn, there are some jelly beans, as well as a spider that I'm going to add to the fence. I die cut the Boo script word die, and I'm going to glue it down to the top of the card. Just die cut that out of some black cardstock, and now I'm going to add that layer onto a piece of solid black cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and then I'll add that layer to an A2 size card base. My A2 size card base is 4 1/4 by 5.5, and that's going to complete my card. For my next card, I'm going to be using the layered pumpkin stencil. I have a piece of Bristol smooth cardstock I cut down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I'm going to add the stencil on top of my cardstock. This is the first layer, which is the pumpkin shape, and I'm going to be inking that with the Distress Oxide dried Marigold ink. So this is a very light orange. I didn't want to go too dark. I wanted to have just a subtle look in the background, and I'm going to ink all of those pumpkins up. To add some depth to my pumpkins, I'm going to then bring in the Carved Pumpkin Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just using a little finger ink dauber, and I'm putting some ink towards the bottom of the pumpkins. This just adds some depth and dimension to all of the pumpkins by going from a dark ink at the bottom to a lighter ink at the top. Once I finish adding all of the darker ink at the bottom of those pumpkins, I'm going to come back in with the dried Marigold ink and just blend that again. So blending the dark into the light ink. And that's how you can add some dimension to a stenciled background. Next, I'm going to come in with the next layer of the stencil, and I'm going to add the leaf at the top of the stencil as well as the stem. So I'm coming in with a very mini ink blending tool to ink up the leaf. I'm using Mowed Lawn to do that, and then I'm going to come in with the Antique Linen Distress Oxide ink and ink up the stem. And the last layer for this 3-layer stencil will add some faces to your pumpkins. And again, this is optional. If you don't want to add the faces, you definitely don't have to. But I'm going to go ahead and add them. And I'm going to be using the Hickory Smoke ink. It's the Distress Oxide ink. It's a light gray ink. And I'm going to go ahead and add that for all of the faces. I die cut some strips of cardstock out of some light gray cardstock, and these are the stitched strips from Pretty Pink Posh. I also die cut a die. It's the green cardstock that you see there. It's from the Easter Circle die set. It's kind of like a label die. And right now I'm just adding some cardstock to the edges, to the left and right edges outside of the strips of gray, just because I want to add this to my card front, and I want to make sure that I have equal layers of cardstock underneath this green label so that this lays flat on my card. Now, I'm sorry that you didn't see me adding the strips to the label. I thought my camera was running, but apparently it wasn't. You can also see that I added one of the critters there on the front of the label, and I also stamped out the word boo right next to the critter. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the excess strips here at the top of the card and bottom of the card panel. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and add this to a gray card base. So my card base is the same color as those gray strips. It's an A2 size card base, and I'll go ahead and add that on, and then that's going to complete my card. So I hope you enjoyed my cards today. If you did like this video, please click that thumbs up button. Remember, all product links will be down in the description box below, and be sure to subscribe for more card making inspiration. Thanks for watching, and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.